You are now listening to the Perceptive Readers Podcast.
Hello, Perceptive Readers. The first responders, they are strong people. It goes without saying that they're actually physically strong, and I'm going to elaborate on that in a second. But in order to do that job, that occupation daily, they do have this emotional and mental awareness and strength, mental strength to do their job throughout the day. Now, granted, see, I do have to mention this. It is interesting also that even though there's a large number that carry out their jobs every day, and then when they're able to go home, they relax, etc. Their home is their haven, their peace, their castle, things of that nature. And yet, we have heard of times where even then, you see, with them helping people all day long, even their mental, emotional battery, if you will, does get drained. And so we have heard of instances where, even first responders, you see, in the military, they joked about it a little bit more about, the perfect soldier, from sunrise to sunset, and then all hell break loose. You see, once the moon comes out. And that's what, happened quite a bit. It was more of a joke for many of the ones back then. But here's the point. The reason why I mention that is because just because a person is strong, even mentally and emotionally, everyone does need an outlet. And sometimes a person, if they don't get the outlet in the way that they need it or what have you, they still may need a helping hand. And my question to you is, do you think there's anything wrong with that everyone needs some help sometimes? And let me tell you, normally when people need help, that's where the being proactive of, goodness comes in, that, a person shouldn't have to always ask and go searching and go dig another 10 foxholes or what have you. That's just an expression I'm using, in order to get the help, because sometimes the help just should be proactive and be given, you see. And that's why I just want to use that quote again, that Thomas Sowell even stated, where he says he doesn't see the justice, you see, in a person being bad off, made worse off in the interest of advancing them, you see. And so I just wanted to state that. Now back to the physical strength. I was some months ago able to even look at the requirements of peace officers. You see, the initial requirements, to go to a cadet school, or by the time you graduate or what have you. And it's interesting because when I looked over those requirements, the how fast you have to run a couple of miles or what have you, within a certain amount of time, push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and things of that nature. And I started reflecting, back, even it was some months ago, to, man, there was a time in my life where there was nothing but a walk in the park just those type of requirements. You see what I'm saying? That was over 100 years ago, but it started me thinking about that. And even with me being over 100 years old now, I came to the realization, I said, man, there is a possibility because, I've referenced even, really famous names in this case because it's easy to give a reference point that I mentioned some persons on my podcast when I was doing intriguing or in-depth commentary on this subject or that subject about them being an example of men's health. And I'm not going to mention the names right now. I mentioned quite a few of them. I know at least a handful of them. And when you do look at some of those persons, you see, yeah, even at the age that they're at, I would say even for them, guess what? To pass that type of physical examination is a walk in the park. See, I want to emphasize that because those type of requirements, if you can meet those, then you're going to be a healthier person. And guess what? It also does help your mental health. See, it helps to maintain your mental health. And then you may say, then why don't everybody, go ahead and do it? And, people have different reasons. But that's another thing where I want to tell you about the point of encouragement and proactiveness. Uh, I told you, and this was way back in the day, where people used to just work like 6, 7 days a week because it was they just had no choice. And on top of that, they maybe didn't always eat the best because why? Their mind was still just more focused on, I got to take care of my family or these persons in my charge. And so it's a form of being manic in taking care of your first and top priorities in life. So in one sense, even though we're supposed to always have a balance, make no mistake about it. And that's what I really want to emphasize. You got some people that no matter how much Matthew chapter 6, what is it, 30s, 33, somewhere in there, what have you, where he says, keep seeking first the kingdom and all these other things will be added unto you. I'm never going to speak against what Jesus said because it's true. Yeah, us as humans being made in dust, hey, we just have different things we fight with from time to time. And sometimes even the level of responsibility that we hold dear, you see, to ourselves can put us in a frame of mind that some may even call, like I said, manic, where it's like no matter what you say, no matter what you do, or what have you, I just can't focus on any other thing until what I need to do for myself in this way, you see. So you can have people who are very simple. They have learned how to be content with this and that. And yet, that's why I tell people, don't play with somebody's money. And yet, that's one of the biggest things that happen to some people in this day and age. Why? Because they see emotionally and mentally understanding and even spiritually certain things where they almost like, man, there's nothing that really gonna bother that person because it's just not their way. So what do you do? What did they do? Or what do certain persons do? What do bullies do? They'll play with your money. And just like one quote I saw recently where persons were saying money isn't everything, but basically you can't buy nothing without it. See? And that's the gist of it, of the type of system we living in. So with that being said, I'm going to reference that scripture again in James and others that really does say you're not supposed to be holding back a person's wages. And I'm going to say this again. If you feel like that a person is worth this or that much or what have you, and you're saying, look, I'm arguing for you to get this or that or what have you. Well, this is what I got to say again. Well, you know what? You still need to directly take care of your asset or your investment in the meantime and stop messing around with that. And, I want to use a quote from an interview that was made with Against the Current, where in this case, it was specifically Krista Costanza that was actually talking about making money. And she was talking as well, when you're going into getting a contract for this or that, it is supposed to be a quid pro quo. You are supposed to look out for one. And look, you are supposed to be like, you know what? I want to make some good money off this by doing the best I can, and you should too. And it also shouldn't be, because she was talking about how you can have some managers, and I know some people work like this, where it's almost like they'll go off totally their reputation, who they are, and this and that of that nature. So it's almost like on one hand, uh, they make it seem like totally, in that frame of mind that they're doing you a favor by actually getting you gigs or what have you. They're still going to bring them in even more money, you see. But yet, if they don't really do that for you, then they still got to get whatever money you're making even on your own. And so what, she was just saying again, that there should be even options, that when certain types of contracts or this end or what have you, you shouldn't have these type of royalties or what have you going on forever and ever, where it's like, wait a minute, I don't even have a contract with you no more. Why am I still paying you? Why do you still, get the money and the rights or what have you, uh, royalties again, off my catalog or what have you? Because that's the way those type of contracts work. I'm not here to argue about it at all. What I am still saying is also along this line of thoughts. Persons should be able to start fresh. And what they learned from the original process that they went through, getting this contract or that contract, what have you, well, you know what? Their next contracts that they write up with another person or what have you, with none of that devil in the detail stuff because of what they learned, then hopefully, any prior arrangements will not become vindictive and just try to tie things up when they really know it's no reason to be tying things up in the first place. That's the same thing as I'm talking about with even people's money. I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. And this all does go along with what I've talked about from the beginning. I'm sure you'll see the line of reasoning of everything that I was talking about, because it's something that you can meditate on basically saying, why did James mention this? Why did he mention that? And I think you'll come to some conclusions on this is why. And then you decide for yourself whether it sounds like I was really being reasonable or not in what I'm stating right now. Have a very wonderful day, Perceptive Readers.